You are watching Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes on IDML.com.
Good morning, and welcome to Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes. My name is Taylor Woods, and I attend Grand Prairie High School. Due to the high demand by its huge audience, Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes, an award-winning CNN talk radio program, has grown to an extent that it naturally progressed to internet and TV radio, the future of media production. That's why the program partnered with IDML.com. Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes has already been recognized and received numerous media awards for its unique approach for disseminating critical and essential business information and for bridging commerce and culture. The program has acquired a reputation for delivering timely, accurate, current, and meaningful data. Thus, the program has proven history for being reliable and consequently has become a trustworthy resource for the business community since 2005. If your friends missed today's program, please let them know that it will be rebroadcasted every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. and every Thursday morning at 11 a.m., both Central Standard Time. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our host, Mr. Eddie Reyes, and his co-hosts, Miss Rebecca Hitz and Miss Raquel Olivier.
Good morning and welcome to Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate you taking time out to watch the show. This is the exciting sound of your money growing. As you will know that most of you have been following us, that we've got great lineup of speakers. Our job is to arm you with information of your business owner, small business owner, minority business owner, veteran business owner. It's all about you. We've been blessed to be able to put this show on and have armed with great co-hosts as with Raquel Olivier. Raquel, tell our audience a little bit about you and what you do, please.
Well, my name is Raquel Olivier. I'm president of Olivier Inc. We're a project controls firm supporting construction industry, document controls, cost controls, contract administration. We've been very fortunate to have some opportunities throughout the country, and we're happy to be here. I'm a CPA, been a CPA for about 15 years, and looking forward to addressing some of the concerns that people have when it comes to accounting.
Thank you. As many of you know, I think a lot of my colleagues are watching today. I was with the University of North Texas as Director of Hub Administration for a little over 9 years. In that capacity, it was a great experience in that it allowed me to network with all 50 chambers of commerce in North Texas and a wide variety of associations or organizations composed either by industry, trade, profession, ethnicity, or gender. In that arena, met some wonderful people. Very proud to announce that I was able to work and build an inventory for the University of North Texas in which we did business with 19,000 different vendors on a daily basis. During that time, I met wonderful people. Raquel was one. And basically our job was to help you navigate the procurement process. How do you sell your widget to the University of North Texas? In that, we did find out that a lot of small businesses, minority or women or veterans, were not aware of all the information that's out there that can help them enhance their business. The different types of certifications, access to capital, which franchises are friendly to women, social technology, writing an app for your business. How about that? We've come a long way. But sometimes it's even so basic. How to write a business plan. How about a marketing plan? How about an exit strategy? All those things. And this is what we're going to bring you. We enjoy it. We love it. We also know that part of working in the community is learning about your police department. Having said all this, and because I did work with so many chambers in many different cities, I've been very blessed to know a lot of great law enforcement agencies, none better than whom we have today. We are very privileged and honored to have the Chief of Police of Great City of Grand Prairie, Mr. Steve Dye. Chief Dye, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Well, thanks, Eddie and Raquel. It's great to be here. I appreciate it.
Now, for our audience, tell us a little bit about you and your great background. We're lucky, we know you, but for our audience, please tell us, where did you start and what interested you in law enforcement?
Okay, well, I'd be glad to. I was really fortunate in that from the time I can remember, I always wanted to be a police officer. And America's all about living your dream, and I actually got to live my dream. I'm still getting to live my dream, and I feel blessed every day because of that. So I always wanted to be a police officer, so when I graduated high school up in the Panhandle in Claude, Texas, not very many people know where that's at, I went to Sam Houston State University because that is one of the premier criminal justice colleges in the world. Graduated from there in 1984, immediately started a couple of weeks later with the Houston Police Department. I was with Houston for a number of years, and then I moved back up here to Garland, where a lot of my family lives. Was with Garland 15 years. I left Garland as an assistant chief in 2010, became chief in Colleyville, Texas. And then after Colleyville, about 2.5 years ago, I came over to Grand Prairie. Absolutely love Grand Prairie. It's a great fit for me personally and professionally, but I love the people there. Great city. So been there since July of 2011, and we're doing a lot of great things, and I just really appreciate you all giving me the time to come on today.
No, we're equally grateful for you taking time out. Really appreciate it. We wanted to get into, as we talked earlier about, if you want to start a business in Grand Prairie, or what, can you please compare some of the changes that you've seen, especially since you went into law enforcement from '94 to currently, whether it be in technology or whether it is community approach and sensitivity. Can you address some of those things, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a general perspective, I'm really proud that I have seen law enforcement progress from an occupation into a profession. Back in 1984 when I was hired, to be quite frank, they were really looking more at our physical attributes than they were at our intellectual attributes. So with the use of technology and further professionalism, we really have evolved into a profession. And I think that carries into obviously the service levels that we provide. Specifically with business owners, I think technology advancements have been critical to us being able to be much more efficient with our resources. For example, previously, we would put officers out there in their beats. They would drive around and patrol their beats and answer the 911 calls, as you know. But with technology, video, and crime intel-led policing software, we're now able to see not only where our offenses have occurred on a daily basis, but predict where they're going to occur. And so we can put our resources in those areas to combat those hot spots. That technology advancement with intelligence-led policing and our video capabilities have really helped our city. I know when I took over in Grand Prairie, we were about the 16th safest city of the 33 cities over 100,000 in Texas, and we have moved up to the 11th safest city. And a big part of that is community policing, but a big part of that is technology. So specifically with business owners, we're doing a lot with our businesses in Grand Prairie with crime prevention through environmental design. It's called SEPTED. And what we do is we go in, whether it's a new business or an existing business, and we work with the businesses to help them harden their targets, give them options on security ideas that can make them less of a vulnerable victim of crime. And what I like about that program is we may come into your business and we may give you a list of 20 things. And then that way, depending on what you can afford or what you want to do, you've got those options. And some of them are not expensive. Some of them are landscaping and lighting changes. And then some of them involve, one of the things I'm really excited about are video alarms. We've always had surveillance for the last few years, which has been very valuable to law enforcement. But the new video alarms for businesses are extremely beneficial because it attaches to your burglar alarm. So when your burglar alarm goes off, in addition to us getting the alarm, we start getting video clips of anybody inside that business.
Wow.
Here's why that's particularly important. Not only do we get those video clips real time, when the officers are en route to that business on an alarm, for an officer safety perspective, we can tell those officers, hey, here's the communications specialist can tell that officer, hey, here's what we're seeing. So they already know what they're looking for. It's much safer for them. But in Grand Prairie, I'm excited to tell you that we actually put that as a higher priority response. So a traditional burglar alarm is a priority 3 response. If you have a video alarm, In Grand Prairie, I moved that up to a higher priority 1, because I've got video that, hey, maybe somebody's inside your business. So we put that to the top of the list, so to speak. What we're seeing is it's increasing our apprehensions, and that is an enhanced deterrence for us. I'm really involved with that nationally with the alarm industry. We're really trying to give them input from a law enforcement perspective on developing best practices for these video alarms. So bottom line in Grand Prairie, and I think in a lot of cities, but I know in my city, we understand the importance of our business sector. We have the Great Southwest Industrial Sector in Grand Prairie. About 60% of GSW is in Grand Prairie, about 40% is in Arlington, and we work very closely with Arlington. That sector is very important to the economy of our city. And so when these recruits are going through the academy, we help them understand, hey, look, it's not just about taking care of these business owners, but it's vital to our city's economy, because they want to do business in a safe city. And that's why I'm so proud to tell you that we are a very, very safe city. So just a lot of exciting things happening, particularly with our business sector.
Now, those programs, especially with the camera and the burglar alarm trips to camera, that is an added value. Now, there is a cost to that, I'm assuming, because, I mean, obviously, you guys, I mean, you have a challenging budget.
Right.
So,
well, you know, for us, it's kind of a neat deal, because for us, we're going to respond to the burglar alarm anyway. So it costs nothing for the city or the police department, other than my commitment to make that a little bit higher priority response. What I love about it for the business owner is, as a police department, I would never get into the business of endorsing specific vendors.
Sure.
There are multiple vendors. They can retrofit and attach it to their existing alarm systems. So if you've got a burglar alarm, it just goes, it's a wireless module, video module that attaches to your existing alarm. So you don't have to rip out your system and, you know, pay $20,000 for a new system. This is just an add-on, so to speak. And I think normally the alarm companies are charging a little bit more per month for the monitoring.
Sure.
But I think you get your return on investment, because you know that GPPD is going to get out there a little bit quicker and better apprehend these suspects.
Now, how does it affect the business owner in terms of permitting fees?
It would not affect that at all. They have to have a burglar alarm permit anyway. We do not make them have an additional permit for the video. What we do is we work with that business and their alarm company to make sure that they know and they understand and have information on the process to send us the video clips. So we set up a special process for that. So we work with the business owner. Hey, who's your alarm company? We contact them. Here's the monitoring station. Here's where you need to send the video. And we help them work through those logistics. So it's pretty painless for the business owner. But of all the technological advancements I've seen in law enforcement, there's been many. I think one of the best is video. We've been using video for surveillance, but that's really more after the fact. That kind of helps after the fact, but sometimes it doesn't. We may have great video of a suspect, still not may be able to identify them. But with the video alarms, that's real-time video. And that's why I'm so excited about it, is because we're getting that quickly in real time. So again, not just from a safety perspective, but an apprehension perspective, we're going to get there quicker and hopefully catch more bad guys.
wow, that is really interesting. It's come a long way. I remember, burglar alarms were always at the bottom when I was a Dallas police officer. And if it rained especially, that's when they all went off, correct?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Eddie, one of the questions I get, well, Chief, if I don't have a video alarm, are you still going to come to my alarm? Absolutely. We're not going to change our response to the traditional alarms. And I think that's important to note. Sure. Not everybody may be able to afford it or may be interested in one. We understand that. So we're not going to change anything on the traditional response. We haven't lowered those. Those are going to stay where they're at.
Okay. Well, we're going to come back here in a few minutes. We've got to pay some bills, but I'd really like to talk to you a little bit about how you've seen the sensitivity and cultural intelligence change in the years that you've been in law enforcement, because I'm sure it's come a long way.
It has.
You are watching Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes, and we'll be right back after these few messages. Thank you so much for watching. Hello, and welcome to Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes. As the economy improves, and with baby boomers retiring daily, there's a renewed strong interest for people wanting to start their own business. they want to create their own independence. Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes, a business talk radio program, has been around since 2005, guiding and advising thousands of individuals on how to do just that, start a business. I am extremely proud and happy to announce that this award-winning CNN radio program has now moved to InTheMixLive.com TV and radio. Watch Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes on InTheMixLive.com every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Thank you for your consideration of perhaps being a sponsor, and we look forward to hearing from you. See you next time. Bye-bye. And welcome back to Diversity in Action. Thank you so much for joining us. Our guest today is Chief Steve Dye, Chief of Police from the City of Grand Prairie. We wanted to talk we left off as we were getting into the whole sensitivity and cultural intelligence. Back then it just kind of gave you a gun and a baton and said, go arrest the bad guy.
Go get him.
The key. Yeah, go get him, right? Adam 12, right?
Right. It's a lot of fun, but we've progressed since then, so to
Sergeant
speak.
Friday, just the facts.
Yeah.
So what have you seen in the change, especially in recruiting minorities and women, but also in community patrols and working with the community?
Well, I'll tell you, really, to be honest with you, back in '84 when I started, we did a lot of great work back then, but it really was, if we went to a scene, for example, and I started in the Houston Police Department, your hometown, Raquel.
Yes, indeed.
Really, when we were out there, Eddie, it was, hey, we'd go to scene and we'd basically, in so many words, tell people, hey, we're the police, we got it, get out of our way.
Right.
And that's kind of how we treated it. Hey, we were the experts, y'all don't know anything about it, we'll handle it. Well, that was very ineffective, and it didn't build trust, and it didn't build relationships. So I think what we finally figured out is, if we partner with our community, where it's a force multiplier, we get enhanced trust, and we get those partnerships formed where we work together. So if you're moving into a city, as a resident, you're interested usually in the first two things you're interested in is the schools and the crime rate.
Correct.
So, everybody in every city is interested in public safety. Everybody wants to be safe. So I think, we share that common bond with the public in that we're all really wanting the same goal, which is public safety. So I think the more progressive departments, what we've realized is the high levels of community involvement will act as that force multiplier, and then we're all working together because, quite frankly, I can't afford to put a cop on every corner. And I can't be everywhere all the time. And I tell people the nosy neighbor is my favorite person because they know what's suspicious in their neighborhood more than we do. But if they don't have that trust or feel comfortable that we're going to help them if they call, then we're going to lose out on that opportunity to help them.
Now, I know that when we were talking before the show started this morning, you were talking about some of the experiences that you had coming into the Houston Police Department and the diverse communities that you've been able to work in. I thought that were very, very impressive that you have been able to segue yourself within those urban communities where they have built that trust for you, and you've been able to take that experience and do great things within your community. As you just mentioned, you've built that trust and you're building that sensitivity of getting the information from the neighborhoods. I'd like to hear more about some of the experiences that you've had in winning that trust.
Okay. I've got a neat story, Raquel, that I want to share, and I tell this story every academy class to our brand new rookies, and I tell them this story for this reason. We are in the people business, and we see people as people, regardless of socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, culture. We are there to serve everyone. So I grew up in a very homogenous community. I grew up in a farming and ranching community. Everybody around me was white, but luckily I was not raised to be prejudiced against other races. So I just hadn't been really exposed. And so when I went to college, and that's one of the reasons that I implemented a 4-year degree requirement at Grand Prairie PD. College offered me a chance to be exposed to diversity. Diversity in race, diversity in opinion, diversity in culture. So when I went off to the Houston Police Department, I was the honor graduate, luckily. And as the honor graduate, I got my first pick on anywhere in the city I wanted to go. and I chose to go to the Central Station, and I ended up working the East End and the 3rd Ward. And so after I had worked out there a while, I started getting phone messages at the station, and this is the story I tell. So I would come in and I would have a message, and it would be a resident, and I would call. It would be a 3rd Ward resident, and they would say, hey, they call me New Kid. Hey, New Kid, you know, this person's selling dope and this person's doing that. They're very scared to come approach me on the street, but they appreciated the work I was doing. And so I tell the rookies, I said, you know, think about it. Back over 20 years ago, there was no internet. These folks had to go to a phone book. Interesting concept. They had to find the particular station I worked at. They had to find the particular shift I worked on, and then they actually had to find somebody that would take a message and give it to me. And I said, think about the effort that took. Now, you tell me those people didn't care about their neighborhood. So I said, no matter what neighborhood you're in, no matter how much money people have, you need to understand there are good people in every neighborhood that care about their community, and we're going to work hard to give everybody equal levels of high service. But I tell that story because I think it impacted me personally, and it let me know at an early age in my career that, hey, we need to be respectful of other ideas and other cultures and other ways that people were brought up. But I believe that if we go out there and we genuinely care about our people and we understand that it shouldn't be predicated on money or status, I think people will see that goodness in our hearts as police officers and know that we're people. And if we don't show that compassion, then we're missing out. And another example I give is, hey, to my rookies and my officers, if you're driving down the street, I expect you to chase the crack dealer, and then if you turn the corner, I expect you to help the elderly lady carry in her groceries. I want those high levels of service no matter what we do. It's not just always about fighting crime. It's about caring for people. So that's just a personal story that impacted me, that really meant a lot to me. And I've always had a soft spot for people in neighborhoods that maybe aren't affluent, because they don't always have the voice, let's be honest, politically.
Correct.
But I don't think they should suffer in their levels of service.
Well, all I heard through that whole story was diversity in action, Eddie.
Yes.
Diversity in
Thank you.
action.
That is correct.
Well, thank you.
You know, it is, we all have stories, especially, but I do remember we had a large Vietnamese community that moved into Dallas back in the 80s. And this was way before they ever thought about culture sensitivity. But, and again, they were, as you well know, they're not outgoing, they're not going to call, they keep everything within the community. But when occasionally there was a crime and we'd go knock on the door, typically the parents would answer, but they couldn't speak English because they spoke Vietnamese. But their child, who was going to school, could speak English. And what we did in error that we were not knowing that we were doing in error, in the minute we made contact with that kid and they would talk English, all our focus was with that child. We did not know that we were offending the parents by not looking at them and communicating. All our focus went to that. So even then we couldn't get information out because it was learning and understanding and appreciating that culture. So tell us about some of the things that you have guys done, and that certainly now I'm sure is incorporated perhaps in the academy. It
is, and I'm also blessed because my wife is from Mexico, and when I met her, she didn't speak English and I didn't speak Spanish, but Raquel, I knew what pretty was, and she was pretty. So I learned how to speak Spanish, and I taught her English, and we've been married 23 years, have 2 daughters in college. So it was 2002, and I was a Garland officer, and we kept having a lot of problems with the language barrier and the diversity confusion, and we didn't really understand the Hispanic culture like we should, and the Spanish language was a barrier. So I told my partner, I said, I've got to do something with my ability to speak Spanish to help in this area. There was no trust with our department that if the Hispanic community had a complaint on an officer, they would go to the TV station. They wouldn't even come to the police station. So I started the Unidos program, and I'm so proud to say that with a lot of good officers through the Metroplex, that's being used in over 10 departments in the Metroplex now. It's since 2002. And all it simply is we offer the same information that we can get on the internet or by asking someone. It's a resource center that we offer that same information in Spanish and awesome. In that language. And so what it's done is by making that effort, and not just in Grand Prairie, but Garland, Dallas, Richardson, Plano, Rockwall, Irving, Arlington, we're all using that program, and we're all, matter of fact, yesterday we had a collaborators meeting, a users group meeting. We all collaborate on how do we offer that information in Spanish, because that way, Eddie, when we go to that door, even if we can't speak Spanish, we can push them to that Unidos program to give them that information in Spanish that we can all get in English, and it builds that trust. At a local level in law enforcement, it's not our position to enforce the immigration statutes that are federal. We don't have the manpower resources, but if we start doing that, we lose that trust.
Right, correct.
And we can't help solve those crime issues and public safety issues in those neighborhoods. So this Unidos program is simply an assimilation program. It's a resource center in Spanish. And I'm so proud of that program because it's persevered, because of the help of many other good officers, and it's spread to these other departments because we're such a transient area. I may work in Grand Prairie and live in Dallas or vice versa. So I love the fact that in North Texas our police departments are really good about collaborating.
You know, you'll appreciate this. In 1983, I'd been on the department, I guess, 3 years, and I was selected to put the first Spanish-speaking program together for the department. But I was only given 80 hours. So you can't train someone to speak Spanish fluent in 80 hours, 240 hours, right? Spread over the 6 months. So basically I just got down to, well, how do I do this? And it was just, okay, what's important? Well, knowing numbers, colors, you know, how do you say, where's your insurance in Spanish, some of those things. That same year, the Dallas Police Department went up north and recruited from Nebraska and Iowa. So we had these big old corn-fed boys down here, you know, and they had heck rolling those R's. So some of the great sayings they came up with was, "Como está you stud?" "Buenos snowshoes." So it was a lot of fun, but it was hilarious to see that because, you know, they were trying, but it's like rolling those R's was really a challenge.
You know, it's neat. I mean, I've got stories over the years. We've had people come and ask, how do I get a plumber? You know, it's not just, what we do is we try not to focus just on police subjects. We try to focus on subjects that are of interest to their daily qualities of life, because we feel like if we can help them in their daily quality of life, that forms the trust that when there is a police issue, we can communicate. But I love the fact, one of the neat things about the program, it's very socially based. We have a good time at those meetings. It's not the police standing up there talking to you about stuff. But by doing that, it's enhanced the trust for the other areas. So when there is a controversial arrest in the community, they're not just assuming that we violated rights or we did something wrong. They're giving us an opportunity, a fairness, so to speak, to hear, you know, our side of the story. And it's really developed because we do make mistakes. But at least we've got that two-way communication and dialogue now.
Well, I'm hearing two different things here that are very, very positive. One is it really is all about the people, the community. I know that sometimes when we get in the business of what we're doing, we lose sight of what we're doing it for. I know that in some instances with, you know, when you're dealing with education, you know, people get in the business of doing the business and not worrying about the children, which is the main reason why schools are even involved. So to hear you talk about the community and the citizens and that focus, that being your focus for your department and your level of involvement. The other thing is, from our conversations earlier as well, it sounds like you guys have to really pay attention to who you're recruiting and looking at the tools that you're using for recruitment and being able to bring those teams together to reinforce your philosophy and your internal culture for your department. I'd like for you to elaborate a little more about the tools that you're using and how you're bringing your teams together.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
That's a great question, and we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back. Let's follow up with that because that is a great question, Raquel. I appreciate it. You are watching Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes, and we'll be right back after these few messages. Stay tuned. Don't go away.
Superintendent of the greatest school district in the state of Texas. Students can choose to audition for the Fine Arts Academy, where they can participate in 7 different strands of the fine arts in a very rigorous academic environment. Students can choose to apply for DeBisky Career High School, where they can participate and learn in any one of 5 schools within a school to become work ready and college ready. These are just a few of the opportunities that our students and our parents will find in Grand Prairie ISD. Anyone can check out everything we have to offer at www.gpisd.org.
DFW Studio 8. That's where all the artists that you've been here before, you understand it, you've met her, you've seen her, you understand everything that goes on here. And if you don't, you need to check out dfwstudio8.com. Phone number is 469-212-7001. Definitely, my name is Buddha. I am the sound engineer, and you will be dealing with me directly. I hope to see you guys soon. DFW Studio 8. Check us at Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, everything you can think of. If you're an artist, you're a poet, if you like to do audiobooks, if you're a professional company, anything that it may be, we have all the audio services to offer. dfwstudio8.com.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Lady D, the host of Keeping It Real with Lady D. And I want y'all to remember that my show is all about teen-friendly fun, teen-friendly videos, and teen-friendly gossip and entertainment. And just think, what if teens ruled the world? What would it be like? So, here's a way for y'all to get in contact with me and my show hosts. You guys can go to Twitter and follow us at IDML 2012. Also, subscribe to YouTube at In The Mix Live. And go to Facebook and search In The Mix Live also. So, to promote your talent or business, log on to inthemixlive.com and go to our contact page so you guys can get in contact with Lady D and Diamond. See you guys later.
Loose cannon.
What's up, everybody? We're back. DFW Studio 8. It's your boy J.O. wrapping up the Loose Cannon album. Everything's being done here. Mixing, mastering, packaging, graphics. This is the place you need to be, people. I'm telling you, from the moment I laid down the verse to the moment that the CD gets into your hands, it's all being done here. DFWstudio8.com. Catch them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the networks. You know where it is.
And we're back. Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes. Thank you again for joining us. Again, my co-host is Raquel Olivier. Great, thank you. And then our guest today is Chief Dye. He's a Grand Prairie Police Chief. We are learning so much about how law enforcement has changed, thanks to your vision, thanks to a lot of visionaries in law enforcement for change. Yeah, that's the rule, but then there's also a lot of gray, right? Letter of the law and the spirit of the law.
Right.
But we were talking about recruitment, and when we finished off, so let's go back to that and how the changes you've seen. And
Sure. Well, we're blessed in Grand Prairie in that we enjoy a high level of elected official and city management support. Our officers are paid well and well equipped. We have a beautiful building. So that actually really gets us off on a good footing for recruiting. The reason recruiting is so important to me, I never fill a position just to fill a position. If I've got 20 openings, but I only find 15 people that I really like, then guess what? We're still going to have 5 openings because I'm only hiring 15 people. I hire for character. The reason is that's kind of like getting into a marriage. If you don't hire the right person, you might be stuck with them for 30 years, And the reason it's so important to me is the character and quality of people we hire. That's going to directly translate into the level of service that we provide the citizens in the community. So I've got to hire the right people that are very, very dedicated to service. I talk all the time to our officers about we're in the service business and we're in the quality of life business. Crime rates are important to me, but you know what the most important thing to me is you enjoying a good quality of life in your neighborhood or where you have your business. So to that end, we have very high standards. I did implement the 4-year degree requirement because I wanted folks coming in that had been exposed to diversity. One of the things I love most about Grand Prairie, we're a very diverse city. I love the diversity. I think it makes it much more interesting and rewarding for me personally and professionally. But I think it's just neat to see diversity in action. When everybody works towards the common good of whether it's your neighborhood or your city or your business sector. So one of the things that we really focus on is young people nowadays. Everything's going to go on that computer. They're going to know or not know about it based on the electronic devices that they carry around. So we really made a commitment with our website, with our Facebook and Twitter accounts, and then we've got some good services that we offer for neighborhoods, nextdoor.com. But we really try to put the word out, and that not only helps with our recruiting, but it helps enhance the transparency of our department. Every time we hire somebody, I always ask them, why did you come here? You know, you could have gone to many other departments. Why did you choose Grand Prairie? And the neat thing is I'm getting a lot of people, not just from the area, but from outside the area, and they're telling us, hey, we loved your website. We love the things you're doing with community policing.
Interesting.
They're not talking about, we do some major crime fighting, and it's a lot of fun, don't get me wrong. But we also do a lot of great community policing initiatives. And these young folks are excited about the things we're doing in the community. And that's really, to be honest with you, that was a surprise to me. Because, Eddie, when you and I were getting started years ago, we were more interested in the crime fighting. Because we'd all grown up with Adam 12. Now, many of you viewers won't know what that is, but that's an old police show. But nowadays, it's really refreshing to see the young people are really interested in what we're doing with the community policing. So we've got to stay on top of our technology, keep it new and fresh in our social media to make sure that we're reaching them, because that's the only way they're finding out about us a lot of times, especially from outside the area. And of course, we do a lot of recruiting at different universities, and we try to focus on universities that have a diverse student population, but also have at least some type of criminal justice program as well.
Well, you know, one of the other things, I do a lot of business within the public transportation sector. How does that tie into your policing as well, and the millennials? Because one of the things that we've been talking about in our conferences and our forums is that they're starting to want the quality of life, and they want to walk more or ride the public transportation more. And so how does that all factor into your targeting or working with the transportation authorities?
We do not have DART in our city. You know, years ago in the Metroplex, you voted DART in or out. We do not have DART, but what we've done is we still have some local mass transportation. We've actually implemented a take-home car program, and that's very unusual. We're the largest city in the Metroplex that has a take-home car program for our patrol officers. The reason we did that is to try to entice and motivate more of our young folks coming in to live in the city, and it's working. We've got, by the end of the year, we'll have over 70 patrol officers that live in our city and enjoy that take-home car program. So that's something that was important to the city manager, the elected officials, and myself, is not only serve the community, but try to live in the community. And that increased visibility with those patrol cars has been amazing. You know, one of the things I want to mention is I think our 29% crime decrease over the last 2 years.
Wow.
That's huge.
That is
Wow.
awesome.
And it's a real decrease. We're not just changing the way we count things. But when I think about that tremendous crime decrease and how it's helping quality of life, you know, a lot of it is the fact that we're more dedicated to our intelligence-led policing, our technology. Those are definitely factors in that decrease. But you know, one of the biggest factors is we've really increased our levels of community involvement. We have created programs for our citizens, volunteer chaplaincy programs. We do a tremendous amount of work with our faith-based community now through our Grand Prairie Police and Clergy Coalition. Our Citizens on Patrol program, we started that program 1.5 years ago. It just won the state award for the best agency in Texas. Yes, very proud of that.
Wow.
And we also just won an international award that the police department did from the International Association of Chiefs of Police. We just won a community policing award, and next week I'm going to Philadelphia to pick that award up. And the reason that's exciting is I think a lot of that success has been predicated on the fact that we've got, you know, about 200 volunteers that, quite frankly, a year and a half, 2 years ago, we didn't have. Well, why don't we have those volunteers? I don't think it's magic. I think they've just seen that, hey, they're not just concerned, back to your point, Raquel, they're not just concerned about what they have for them and what they do. They're concerned about the greater good, you know, of the city, the vitality of the city.
But you know what, Chief? Not that I'm being biased or prejudiced here, but you are out in the community. Prior to you coming on board, you rarely did see the previous chief out in the community. You're everywhere, which is wonderful, which helps to build and develop that trust, because then someone like me who is in a perhaps lower economic area allows me to talk to the man directly. And I think whether you're Anglo or Hispanic, you're still the chief. And so that whole psychological approach of being able to, little old me gets to talk directly to the chief, that is so huge. I think that, and thanks to you, and it's a vision, and you're working it. You just don't talk it, you work it.
Well, I appreciate it, Eddie. That's very kind of you to say. I'll tell you, I really, to me, it's two things. You know, it doesn't matter what job we have in my police department. I don't care if you're the chief or you're the recruit in the academy. When we all graduate the academy, we should never lose sight of the fact that we're all police officers. If I'm driving down the road and I see a crime that needs attention, I stop and I get involved, because we all have different jobs to do, but we should all remember our main core responsibility, and that's serving the public. And so that's one of the things, and I think the reason I think that way is I actually spent 20 years as an officer before I ever promoted. Mm-hmm. So the majority of my 29-year career was spent as an officer. So I tend to think at that level first, and then think at the other levels instead of the other way around. And I think the other thing is I love what I do. Right. You know, and I'm so blessed. I tell my daughters, you know, whatever you decide to do, find something that you love to do, because you're going to be doing it for a long time. And if you love what you do, it doesn't really feel like I have to work. You know, now, Mr. City Manager, that doesn't mean I don't want a good paycheck. But,
it sounds like you have an entrepreneurial approach, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're the janitor to the financier. You know, you do everything. You know, it's you know, you take the trash out, mm-hmm. You know, you hire the people, you pay the people, you collect the money, you go get the clients. And so it sounds like you have that type of approach within your department or within your jurisdiction or within your control. And I'd like for you to elaborate a little more about how you handle your team meetings, your mm-hmm. Training, how does it all get interwoven? Because it does sound like you have an entrepreneurial approach.
Well, you know, let's not sit around and wait for somebody else to do it. If it needs to be done, do it. And, you know, let's not worry about that's below my pay grade. Hey, you know, it's all about the common goal of high level of service, improvement or maintenance of good quality of life. And everything we do should point to that. So if I'm going to ask my officers to go out there and do things that I'm not willing to do, then I don't think that I'm genuine, and I don't think they're going to respect me, because, you know, that doesn't make sense to me. If I'm going to ask them to do it, I should be willing to do it myself. Now, can I be out there doing their job every day? Absolutely not. But, you know, I think it's just the collaboration of let's all get the job done, and I think it's approachability. I never wanted to be that chief that didn't know your first name and that you couldn't feel like you could walk up and talk to. I've gotten more good information being a chief over the last few years, because I think people felt comfortable with me. The best ideas really that I've ever gotten in my career as a chief, most of them have come from the line level. Well, I think if we didn't have that spirit of all being in this together and all working together, I don't know that they would have been comfortable coming with those ideas. One of the most time-consuming things that I do is I meet with all of my employees every quarter. Now, that's a ton of time.
Yes, it is.
That it consumes, and you all know that being in the business sector, but you know what? That's the most important thing I do. Sometimes we get so busy, wrapped up in the processes, we forget the people. And so sometimes, you know what, even if you got to put it on your calendar, write on your calendar that I'm going to spend this next hour walking around and talking to folks. If you know, what's important gets done. And if you don't make that an important thing, then all of a sudden you've gone 6 months just processing work, and you've forgotten to be out there on the shop floor.
Chief, we're going to have to take a little break, but when we come back, I'd like to get your opinion and your insights how 9/11 has changed policing, all the way down to even personal in life, and how that affect law enforcement and how y'all address crime now. Different than prior to 9/11. So I really appreciate your insights. And then technology, good, bad, or indifferent, because there's always pros and cons to that. You are watching Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes, and we'll be right back after these few messages. And thank you so much for taking time out to watch.
Hello, my name is Rosemary Trujillo. I'm the chairman of the board for the Greater Grand Prairie Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We hold our meetings every fourth Thursday of the month. At Travis Elementary School, we start at 11:30 to 1 o'clock. We bring in various speakers, and these speakers contribute to every one of our business owners to make them better business owners. And before we go any further, I would like to introduce our board to you.
Greg Vaquera, President.
Esmeralda Rodriguez, Membership Chairperson.
Denise Benavides.
You can contact us at gghcc.com for any information, and our calendar is also online.
DFW Studio 8. That's where all the artists that you've been here before, you understand it, you've met her, you've seen her, you understand everything that goes on here. And if you don't, you need to check out dfwstudio8.com. Phone number is 469-212-7001. Definitely, my name is Buddha. I am the sound engineer, and you will be dealing with me directly. I hope to see you guys soon. DFW Studio 8. Check us at Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, everything you can think of. If you're an artist, you're a poet, if you like to do audiobooks, if you're a professional company, anything that it may be, we have all the audio services to offer. dfwstudio8.com.
And welcome back to Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes. Thank you so much. Be sure and tell your friends. Go inthemixlive.com and watch us and click on. Know that this broadcast will be shown again on Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time and Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. It is also archived for a month. So please be sure and tell your friends. We've got a great guest today. Again, Steve, Chief of Police of Grand Prairie, Steve Dye. So we were talking about how the changes you've seen since 9/11. I'd like to insight on that. And equally, it was on the news lately where I think it's Grapevine Police, perhaps one of your departments, that is photographing every license plate that's going to the mall. And there's pros and cons about that. Mm-hmm. And it's not so much that they're doing it, I think, it's for the length of time that they keep it and what do they do with that information. But let's go back to after 9/11. What changes did you see in law enforcement that really got down to the ground level?
Well, in many respects, it took away our innocence as a country. We realized that we're not immune to attack. And if you look at a lot of the Oklahoma City bombing and a lot of these terrorist attacks, domestic terrorism, a lot of these incidents had interfacing with local law enforcement. So no longer in law enforcement do we take it for granted that nobody's going to be looking at our water tower to possibly, taint our water supply. We no longer take it for granted that these terrorists maybe don't live in our neighborhoods. The Holy Land Foundation investigation, as a Garland lieutenant, I was out on the scene of one of the residences of Garland, of one of the gentlemen that's in prison now for that investigation. So, I think we knew all along that local law enforcement has more contacts with people than anybody else. I think what it did is obviously it was a terrible attack, and we all understand that, but one of the benefits that came out of it, we have an enhanced collaboration with the federal government. State and local had always worked pretty well together, but we enjoy a much more collaborative relationship with the FBI and Homeland Security, ICE, than we used to. Not that they didn't want to before, but I think they understand the nexus of the contacts are a lot of times going to come at the local level. So our information sharing is much better. Our radio systems were all becoming P25 compliant for interoperability. That's another terrible tragedy, is that nobody in 9/11 could talk to each other on the radio. So we're now in the process nationwide of making all of our systems, our radio systems, interoperable. So in emergencies we can communicate with each other, and we're doing things regionally. Now since 9/11, we tend to think regionally. We're getting ready to do a regional radio system with Arlington and Mansfield. We regionalized our detention center and our communication center when I was chief in Colleyville with South Lake and Keller. So we tend to think regionally for not only enhanced efficiency, but for that information sharing. So I think those are some of the benefits. And then, you talk, Eddie, about like the automatic license plate readers. That's great technology. And the way that works, for those of you that may not know, is the photograph can be taken of the license plate in a nanosecond, and immediately it comes back, the registered owner, whether or not there's warrants for that person, whether or not they're a registered sex offender. This information comes back to us. That capability is not so valuable really on the apprehension end as it is on the data compilation end. So if we're investigating a homicide in Grand Prairie, and I can go to the license plate system that has thousands and thousands of license plates, I may be able to identify that murder suspect. I think there's always a balance. I think most departments are doing a good job. I think there's a balance there between invasion of privacy and public safety. I always tend to take the stance that if you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't have anything to worry about.
Right.
I think the onus is on us, though, to be responsible on how we use that information. We've got to make sure that it's only used for legitimate investigative purposes. And then in Grand Prairie, what we do is after 2 years, it's no longer retained. Why 2 years? Because that's the statute of limitations for many criminal offenses. So I think as long as we're responsible in the usage and the retention, I think that technology is a great advancement, because it's like going to the airport. We used to be able to just go get on a plane, right? That was nice. Well, unfortunately, because of some terrorist attacks, we can't do that anymore. And I hate that. We were just talking about that, Raquel, just what a pain it is to go through that process. But this technology is no different. It's not that law enforcement is out there. We're not out there wanting to invade your privacy. We're not out there wanting to know your personal information. But the reality is we live in a different world. And it goes back to my original point is we've lost some innocence. And so people are just going to have to understand that there may be some things that are maybe less comfortable for them than there used to be, but it is for that greater good. And at the same time, we as law enforcement have to be responsible in how we handle that technology.
Well, are you all having any public outreach events of communication with the public so that they are edified in what you're using the data for? And a lot of times we get a little temperamental about that particular aspect and the sensitivity about it, but as long as we know what you're doing with it, I think that helps to contain some of that. So are you guys doing some of that?
That's a great point. Actually, we are. And again, we use social media and website and water bill inserts. We use a lot of avenues for that. But you know what? One of the difficulties is every city has their own police department. And whilst in the Metroplex we do a great job of collaboration, everybody's got a different set of technology. I mean, it may be similar, but it's not the same. Everybody's got a different, philosophy on how they want to communicate that. We've all got maybe different policies, or at least slightly different policies. So sometimes it's hard, Raquel, because I may put out something in Grand Prairie, or Chief Boyd may put out something in Irving that may not be put out in other cities, or vice versa. That's always a struggle for us, and that's tough, especially in this area. So you take Houston. In Houston, pretty much everything's either Houston or Harris County. There's some suburbs. Here, there are multiple cities that are over 100,000, and many more cities that are less than 100,000. So we've got so many cities contiguous to each other here. That is a little bit of a struggle. Now, the media works pretty well with us here. We enjoy pretty good relationships with the media. So the media is pretty good about trying to maybe educate on a broader scale on these issues. But I think you do bring up a good point. I think we can always do more of that. I think at times we get wrapped up in the technology and getting that rolled out, and sometimes we forget about the public educational piece. And I think that's a good reminder that, we've got to, because I agree with you, I think if people have all the facts, you'll still have a few that just aren't going to like it no matter what. But I think if people have all the facts, then most people understand, okay, now I get it. Because if they don't know that we're only going to keep it for 2 years and they don't know what we're using it for, then they may be going, I don't like that. I mean, I'm a chief of police. You think I want the public knowing where I live? Maybe not always, right?
That's right.
Chief, let's turn the tables a little bit, and let's remind our audience that we as civilians, as citizens, have responsibilities. We just can't dump everything on the law enforcement. So I'm sure you've never heard this phrase, but ignorance of the law is no excuse. And so anytime you pull somebody over, I didn't know that. So where should a citizen go to find out? Every 2 years the legislature passes laws. And so is there a website that a local common citizen can go to and say, okay, it's my responsibility to know what the laws are? So are there websites, or how does law enforcement get that out, or the legislature, or Austin?
Yeah, there are, Eddie. Again, another great question. The state of Texas has a website, and it has all the legislative updates. As you know, our legislature meets every 2 years. So the state does have that website, and you can not only go and get the updates, you can go on every different set of laws, and at any time look at that. That's all public information. So if you want to look at something in the transportation code, which pertains to traffic law, it's right there online at the state of Texas website. You can go on there and look in the penal code and look at all the criminal violations. You can go look at Code of Criminal Procedure, which tells us, when we can arrest on a warrant, when we, can arrest without a warrant, those types of things. So that's the great thing about technology and our internet sites, is all of that is available. I don't have the specific website address, but it's the state of Texas. It's one of the favorites on my computer at work, because I'm constantly going in there and referencing a particular statute, because even as chief, there's so many, I can't keep up with all of them. And then what we do is we train our officers every 2 years on all the legislative updates. And then what we try to do is, if there's a law that has changed dramatically since the last session, we try to provide some type of grace period for that. That way, we're not just hitting the citizens cold. For example, we had hoped the last couple of sessions that the state would pass a no texting law. Texting and driving has gotten so egregious, it's not only hurting those that are doing it, it's hurting and killing people around them. It's increasing our insurance rates. It's causing a lot of problems in our society. And go to a stoplight, go to a red light, and look around. So what we decided to finally do as a city is pass a no texting ordinance. Grand Prairie and Arlington are the only cities that have them now. I know many other cities in the Metroplex are in the process of implementing an ordinance. Of course, the city ordinance is just for the city. I know a lot of other cities are following suit because of that problem. So, for example, we passed ours about 5 or 6 weeks ago. We're giving everybody till December the 1st before we write tickets. So we've already been out there stopping people for texting and driving. But we're just telling them, hey, just so you'll know, it's against the law here in Grand Prairie. And starting December 1st, we're going to issue citations. We gave a 90-day grace period, because it's not about revenue generating and writing tickets. It's about public safety and the awareness piece. And we do billboards and website. So we try to hit all of those avenues. And on those big changes, we try to always allow them a grace period.
We are almost at the end of the program. I meant to ask you, when we're talking about sensitivity and recruitment, what are the percentages that ballpark figures in terms of how many females you have on your department, and other breakdowns, if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. We're in pretty good shape reflecting our community, but we're not exactly where we want to be. Our city is about 45% Hispanic, about 8% Asian, and then the remainder is pretty equally split between Caucasian and African American. One of the things I'm excited about is historically, females were not in the law enforcement profession as they should be. They provide a dynamic that I really like. They provide a sensitivity and a compassion that is just a little bit different than our male officers. So it's a great compliment to mesh those together. We have had a great success in our first 2 academy classes. We started our own academy with recruiting females. And I love the fact now that law enforcement as a profession and not an occupation is open to ladies. Eddie, I would like to have more, but again, back to our citizens, we do not implement a different standard of hiring because there's so many good qualified female applicants out there. But yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that, because the female recruits that we've been hiring, the female officers that we hire, just do a great job for us, and it just makes us, I think, a more well-rounded department.
Thank you, Chief, for being
Thank you.
guest speaker on Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes. Raquel, it's always good to see you. Next week, we're going to have guest speakers on learn how to do business with the City of Arlington and the Tollway Authority. And following up, we also have recognizing the 50th anniversary of JFK. We have the curator from the Sixth Floor Museum as our guest speaker. And the Saturday before Veterans Day, I've been very fortunate to recruit the Rangers, the U.S. Army Rangers that were in Mogadishu. If you ever saw the movie Black Hawk Down, the book was based on these individuals, and they're going to be our guest speaker on Saturday right before, which is the 9th, which is before Veterans Day. So please be sure and join us. Stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes on InTheMixLive.com.
You are watching Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes on InTheMixLive.com.
Watch Diversity in Action with Eddie Reyes on InTheMixLive.com every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Thank you for your consideration of perhaps being a sponsor, and we look forward to hearing from you. See you next time. Bye-bye.